In this clip, we're going to look at the forces of supply, and just as we saw in the demand clip, we see that there is a law of supply, which states that as the price that the public is willing to pay rises, the producers are willing to supply more at that higher price. What we also have is a situation where we've got the schedule, a supply schedule, and a supply curve, a diagram which reflects the schedule. A firm is able to calculate or determine how much of a good it's prepared to produce at various different prices by analyzing all of its cost data and all the factors of production, and it can calculate how much it's prepared to produce at all these given prices. So in this case, we looked at the chocolate bar situation in the demand curve. If we look at the supply curve, we're looking at a firm producing chocolate bars, and it'll calculate how much it's prepared to produce at any given price, and it'll work it all out. It comes up with its supply schedule. It says at 20 pence, it's only prepared to produce 250,000 chocolate bars a day. That's not very profitable for it, but it does have fixed costs that it has to be able to come up with some kind of revenue to cover their rents and so on and so forth. But as the public is willing to pay a higher price, it's prepared to produce more. And while we get the 40 and 50 pence, they're making 1 million chocolate bars a day, because now we're getting quite profitable. This is a profit maximizing firm, and if the public was ever willing to pay 60 or 70 or as much as 80 pence for a chocolate bar, the factory would be working 3 shifts a day, producing chocolate bars from day and throughout the night, because this would be a very, very profitable level for the company to operate at. Like we did with demand, we then take this supply schedule and move it on to a diagram. Quantity is always on the lower horizontal x-axis, so we would just shift quantity here at 250,000. That's the lowest quantity here, so we put that next to 0, 250, 500,000, 750, a million, so on and so forth going out there. And we then move price onto the vertical y-axis with 30 pence, 40 pence, 50 pence, 60 pence, 70 pence, so on and so forth, rising up as the price increases. And what we're able to see here is that 30 pence, we saw that the firm would be prepared to produce 500,000. That's the intersection between 30 pence and 500,000. 40 pence and 750 would be here. 50 pence and a million would be there. 60 pence, a million there at 1 point, and so on. And we're able to come up with a series of dots which we can then all join together, and we identify this as the supply curve. Just like what we had in demand, a change in price that the public is willing to pay, ceteris paribus, meaning everything else remaining equal. If the public is willing to prepared to pay a higher price, then we would shift production outwards to accommodate that higher price. But that's the movement, that's the simple part. That's just a static supply curve, and we just move up and down that as price the public's willing to pay changes. What we're really looking to get at, though, is a shift of a curve. How does this curve change? Maybe the firm would be prepared to reduce its production at a price. That's a shift inward, or a shift outward down to here, where it's prepared to produce more at a lower price. Why would a firm be prepared to produce more at a lower price? Well, the fact of the matter is there are, say, 5 or 6 reasons. Remember, here we had a situation where we started out where the firm was prepared to sell 1 million chocolate bars a day, produce 1 million chocolate bars a day if the public was prepared to pay 50 pence. But in this case here, the supply curve was shifted out here. We can see that at 50 pence, the firm is now prepared to produce 1.5 million, or conversely, we can see that it would be prepared to produce 1.25 at 40 million, which is different from what it was. What are the factors that contribute to the company, the firm, being willing to do this? Well, what we find in economics is that there is 5 key factors that drive shift of demand curve either inwards or outwards. The first key factor to look at is the cost of inputs. And again, I guess it's fairly intuitive. If a firm is faced with a lower cost of production, it'll be able to make a higher profit at the previous price. So if it was costing it 30 pence to sell a chocolate bar at 50 pence, 30 pence worth of sugar and cocoa and milk solids and whatnot, and labor was going into it, but suddenly they get the cocoa much cheaper, well, they'll ramp up production because it's only costing them 20 pence to make a chocolate bar. So of course, they're now prepared to sell more at that same price. If the cost of inputs declines, they will increase production. Likewise, if the cost of inputs increases, they would shift the supply curve inwards. The second point is technology. Now, this is linked to the cost of inputs in the sense that it reduces their cost of production. If some tremendous new technological advance comes along, so they're able to make more chocolate bars out of the same amount of cocoa, or the factory becomes far more productive, they don't need to hire so many workers, machines do it all, then they too would be prepared to shift and produce more chocolate bars at the previous price. A third key factor here is legislation. That is, if the government has determined that a production of a product is to be encouraged, that they really like this product, it's very good for us in general, some health foods or so on and so forth, they will encourage the production of this through subsidizing the producer. That would shift its supply curve outwards. And likewise, if the government saw a product was deemed a demerit good, it's a negative for society, like tobacco or something, it will throw on a tax to shift the supply curve inwards, I should say. Fourth factor driving the supply is the amount of competition. We find that if there are many competitors in the production industry, they will produce the producers will produce more at a lower price because of the amount of competition forcing them to go out there and continue to produce. They just have to. That's just the nature of the industry. So we are driven by these four factors. I think we could probably add a natural phenomenon to the list too. That is, if we get hurricanes, or let's say the production of wheat will increase if we get a fabulous bumper crop with great weather, or a terrible earthquake destroys all the productive capacity like we saw in the Kobe earthquake in Japan. We had a lot of factories were enabled to that period. That will shift the demand curve inward. So those are the 5 key factors to always look. This is the menu to select. At any single time we're seeing a change in price, we have to determine whether it's demand driven or supply driven. If it's supply driven, we will select from one of those 5 factors to be able to explain just what is the force at work. I hope that's of some use.